all the time.
Hello, and welcome to Behind the Design with OPEX coaches Daniel Persson, Brandon Gallagher. We are back. It's a slightly different time. We have been live at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, but with the time change, because I'm in Arizona, the oddball state that does not change time, we are now at 11:30 Eastern. So join us live from now on until the time changes again, or until these guys decide they want to ditch me. But we love hanging with you. The comments are open. Please leave us comments or ask questions. Today, we're getting an update on Daniel's programming because he's been working towards something pretty epic. And I think there's some progress to share. So we're going to dive into that. I don't really have a ton of updates other than Brandon has a new podcast episode that released today. So check that out, the BG Perform podcast. He can tell you all about that. I'm also very excited because today is week 9 of the OPEX method mentorship. And I get to take over from Carl, who he teaches the first 8 weeks. And I teach weeks 9 and 10. And we dive into content strategy this week. And then next week, building marketing systems. So I get to hang with a group of 40 new, soon to be OPEX coaches and talk to them about building their personal brand and creating content that actually is unique to them and coaches, and make them fall in love with marketing as much as I love marketing. So it's going to be a great day. Happy to have everyone here. And I will hand it over to you guys. Are we sharing anything?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be sharing something in a minute.
Okay, cool. Let me know when you're ready.
Cool. All right. Daniel, how are we feeling?
Good. Got a run in today. Still kind of building my home office after the move, but I'm starting to get a bit better rhythm over the day now. Where you have these grand thoughts that you will quite quickly get everything in order and get up and running like after moving, but didn't play out as planned.
Never does.
How about you?
Never does. Good. Feeling good. Feeling good training myself. But we're going to talk about Daniel's training today. My training's been honestly really, really good as of late. I've been pushing a couple movements. I haven't really been focused on like numbers recently. It just hasn't been something that's been of the utmost importance to me. My main thing has been consistency, not getting injured, and not that I have a history of getting injured, but just staying consistent and really testing a couple things in regards to like layout, structure, combos, things like that. So it's been good the last couple months, but I'm feeling good about it also. But yeah, today we're gonna dive into what we've been doing on Daniel's side of training. Daniel, I think it's been 4 months now.
Yes. So it should have been like mid-November, right? No. Or is it?
Yeah. I think it's 4 months today. Today, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's so close to that. 4 months. And Daniel came to me asking about getting to a 250 deadlift, 250 kilo deadlift, which is where is it? I have it written here. It's 524, I believe, is the weight. I could just do the math, but I had it written down.
Should be around 550, right?
550, yeah. Somewhere around that 550 mark. 554, yeah. And I was excited when he came to me because obviously it's cool to work with another coach. It's cool to work with somebody who is in the same world as I am in regards to coaching. And you don't really find a lot of people who share the same mindset and oftentimes get to like work with them in the setting that I've gotten to work with Daniel. So it's been great. And I think we've both learned from working with each other. But what we're going to dive into today is just basically where we've kind of, I think where we left off at was probably like, about a month and a half ago, maybe was the last time we talked about it.
Yeah, something like that. So it was, if you want to go back and have a look at the first episode of Behind the Design, we discussed us starting up everything. So it's a good episode to look into, adding to this one, because then we discussed the first couple of months. And
January 6th was the date. That was what it looks like the date was. So that was
Yeah.
just about 2 months ago. So about 2 months ago, and we've had a lot of training since then. Daniel's had a lot of training since then. And I want to start before I like dive into everything. Tell him, you know, where you're at right now, and then I'll like obviously give him the update on like the deadlift, and then we can dive a little bit into the specifics in a second, like how we got there. But let's just give him a little update on that.
Yeah, so it's like this last week we did pull like the first heavy single since we started working,
Mhm.
and we started off with like more repetitions and kind of a build up phase, and then we had a phase recently now where we start pulling like some heavy singles, starting off with some doubles, and then went into singles, and then we ended up last Monday. Beginning of last week, I pulled a heavy single, and then I pulled 240. And so 250 is the goal, and why 250 is the goal is that it would be about 3x body weight for me,
Mhm.
and that's something I've been real close a few times, but I've never really managed to get it, and 250 was kind of a reasonable target in terms of how much I weigh, and I don't have that much room to drop in terms of body weight, so might as well go for that 250 since
Yeah.
it's nice weight as well. So, but yeah, I pulled 240 last week, felt good. Was actually surprised with pulling 240 because it's when we started, I didn't have that. My reference is in terms of what I can pull
Mhm.
wasn't that fresh. So the first couple of months we kind of tried to, or at least I tried to figure out the intensities and like the levels where I should put the lifts, and now with kind of through that max effort lift have more clear picture of where I'm at in terms of strength.
Yeah, and I think it was when we originally kind of like went through the numbers. I think the number we were kind of at was you had mentioned was like 220 kilos.
Yeah.
So and then that like, to make those sorts of jumps in the deadlift, especially at like your body weight with your capacity, is really impressive. I think sometimes like people underestimate that aspect of someone like an athlete like yourself because of all the other things you can do inside of your fitness, right? And obviously in the world of CrossFit, it might not be, or we'll say functional fitness, but like in the world of functional fitness, it's a lot more common to see. But I think with the average person, you know, taking a movement like that and expressing it in the highest capacity is really, it tends to be really hard with someone who's very generally fit because they're, you know, you have to kind of like hone in on one thing. And me and Daniel talked about this a lot. And I think what we talked about in the first video was just breaking down what that actually looks like to focus on one thing while also getting like touching on all the other things you need inside of a program. And I think one of the things we sat down and kind of talked about early was Daniel obviously like likes to run. He wants to be able to continue to run. He wants to be able to continue to get a good pump during the week. He wants to have those other facets of fitness while also, really building the deadlift. And the deadlift is probably, in my opinion, it's probably the hardest, like physically the hardest movement to do because it's so taxing on the body. And I think Daniel, you can speak from experience. I know when I've gone super focused on the deadlift, there's something special about the feeling after like a heavy deadlift. And I think like the central nervous system fatigue, that just overall fatigue you feel is different. And I think it's like a special type of different because you, you you can't really get that from anything else. I don't know if I'm explaining this right, and I think people who like train, the people who train regularly and push themselves like that or have in the past, they know that feeling of what it's like after a heavy deadlift session. It's almost like a fatigue, but it's like a accomplished fatigue. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I
It's
think Or go ahead.
Yeah, it's since it's for most people where you can, in like absolute terms, lift the most amount of weight. It will always be different. Obviously, there are some people that can do like a back squat heavier than the deadlift, but it's for a lot of people it's those two, and for a lot of people the deadlift is where you can move the most amount of weight in absolute terms in kilos or pounds.
Yeah. So I think where we last let off, and I'm gonna share the screen in a minute, but where we last left off with that episode, um, we were just kind of getting into this next phase of intensity and starting to build. And I think at that point, the last, just kind of even looking back here, we were about in the 80-ish% range, working at around like 180 kilos here. Took a little deload week, I think that week before, and then we started to take like a very aggressive jump from there. And I think it's really important sometimes with the intensity, you want to, before you're doing anything where you're expressing like the highest stress that you can express or the highest force you can express, you want to build a base. And I think you don't want to skip this phase, or you don't want to look over this phase, because that's what's going to allow you to continue to actually build. And I think a lot of people forget this inside a program. And if you're a new coach that's listening, or someone who's, maybe not had the experience of taking someone through like months and months of programming yet, that beginning phase is so important to setting yourself up for success down the line, right? And I think those first that first month and a half, 2 months is what essentially gives as like someone like Daniel the ability and the confidence to then push that intensity as we get down the line. So when I share this, I'm going to share the screen quick here. So you guys can see that. Hold on, I think Candace
Not
just
yet.
needs this. Yeah, there we
There
go.
you go.
So when we're looking at this, right? This was the week following. This was the week of the last video, and then this was the week following. So as you can see, very similar layout to what we were working on before. We're still having our bodybuilding pump day on Fridays, sometimes on Saturdays, depending on where you were at or what was going on in your schedule. And then we had our upper body focus day on Wednesday. We had our 2 conditioning days or running days on Tuesday and Thursday, and then obviously our big day was on Monday. And I think what we spoke about last time was one of the reasons I liked having this on Monday and having this rest on the weekend was so you're coming back fresh with like full rest days through the weekend. And that was something that was going to allow you to actually, feel fully rested to execute the deadlift to the highest ability that you can. So at this point, this was 1, 2, 3. So about 4, we did that last week. Yeah. So this was about a month and a half after or leading up to that last deadlift we just hit. So we started here with the same kind of conjugate model as well, this condensed conjugate. We were working on some explosive movement in the beginning. We had that on both the main lifting days. And one of the things Daniel mentioned to me that he really enjoyed also was having these heavy days be like very early in the week. And Daniel, I want you to give your like feedback on that. But I think one of the things he mentioned to me was having this heavy day here on Monday, and then having this really like upper body heavy day on Wednesday, then allowed him to kind of not coast through the rest of the week, but kind of have that like weight lifted off your shoulders, right? About the heavy training sessions during the week.
Yeah. So I like, for one, if it's really good with my schedule, because then I know that I like Monday and Wednesday are usually quite consistent in terms of where I can train and how my days look like. And Fridays, I sometimes travel for coaching or, yeah, do different kind of coaching projects where I might be at a different gym or by some reason have to train in another place. So this works really well for me. Like just the flow over the week, and also with just as you explained, coming off the weekend, having 2 rest days, going into Monday fresh, where that's how I look at it when I look at the week. This is where I really need to move the needle, because this is the top priority session, and I need to put a lot of effort into this session. So it's really nice, like physically, to have those 2 rest days coming into Monday, but also for me mentally, because I usually look at a training week and I'll see some elements where I understand, like, I really need to get after it, and for me it works well to get that over with early in the week, because then otherwise I'll just be thinking about it and like planning out what weights I would pick, or how it's going to feel like. And I think that a lot of people can recognize that, or um, see that when you might have a test or a workout or a piece within the week. That's really important. It's almost like you can't get it out of your head until you're done. So for me, it's been physically and mentally a really good flow with having the top priority day on Monday, and then also having the Wednesday session, and then when I'm done with Monday, Wednesday, it's not that it's not like quality training, the rest of it, but it doesn't take as much of me, like, mentally, to get through the bodybuilding session as the first 2 ones. And what I want to say also, like, looking at this, for a lot of coaches that do program design, or for that matter athletes, if they look at this and they might feel like this is not a lot of volume, and this is not a lot of like, it's basically 2 sessions where I really get after it in terms of strength, and then I have a bodybuilding session. That's it. I do some running as well, but that doesn't really help the deadlift. So if we just think about it from a deadlift perspective, I have 2 sessions where I really push strength, and I think it's beneficial to see how much you can do out of 2 sessions, because I believe that coaches tend to over program or put a lot of stuff in there because they want to maybe show off, or just entertain their clients with a lot of volume. But it's been quite cool to have these 2 sessions that really makes a difference, and it's not a lot, but it's it's been tough training weeks.
Yeah. But I think that's the main thing too, is like, again, you don't need volume to make progress. You don't need to be in the gym for 6 hours, in a week, really. I mean, even being in the gym for, how long these sessions usually take you? 45 minutes to an hour? Maybe a little bit more?
Yeah, maybe a bit more, but it depends. Like, if I can push it, and sometimes I take it, like, some more time between the pieces if I can. But let's say between 1 hour and 1:15 maybe.
Cool. Yeah. So like something around that time, if you're in the and right now, outside of we'll count the running time, but like, and the running time's usually about 45 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, say he's in the gym for about 5 hours right now during the week, and taking a deadlift from 220 kilo to, roughly 220 kilo, if that was what it was at the time, to 240 kilo, and with, obviously some room to grow there. You don't have to be in the gym that much. And it's not to say that, like, spending time in the gym is bad. Obviously, like, you can spend a lot of time, you can learn a lot in the gym, but you can be really efficient and make progress. And that's one of the things that I'm very adamant on as a coach, because there's a couple of things, if new coaches are listening to this right now, or people who are going through the process of like the OPEX method, or whatever you might be learning, even looking at this throughout the week, like Daniel said, like, yeah, this isn't like a ton of volume, but these sets, the reps, the things like that, the tempos that you see through here, the percentages, like these accumulate on the body very quickly, right? And when you start to throw in pieces like this multiple times throughout the week, you're going to be okay for a couple weeks. Like, if we had 4 sessions during the week where they were as intense as like Monday and Wednesday, and we had 2 more, would Daniel be getting as much done? I don't know. Like, how long would actually that intensity be able to last before he, makes physically a mistake or mentally a mistake or doesn't show up 100% to the session because we're taking, Saturday and Sunday, and now we're only giving him like a little bit of, we're giving him less rest to then come back on Monday for the deadlift. And that was one of the things we talked about early on, which is like, if we're going to add, a run in on Saturday or Sunday, which was something we kind of talked about in the beginning, is that really beneficial right now? Right? Is that going to add to what we're looking to do, or is that just going to take away from what we actually want to do? Right? And sometimes we get this mindset in our head of like, if some is good, more is better with programming, like Daniel kind of just spoke about. And that's just not the case. And I think one of the big things I want you to kind of even see in this design, right? There's three main things I want you to notice over the course of the 6 weeks that we're going to go over today. And main one, just to give Daniel some credit, is a lot of green, right? There's a lot of green. There's a lot of comments filled, the comments box filled. Even clicking on these, there's a lot of videos, right? Like we're seeing actual videos. We're seeing real time footage as best we can with the work that we're working on inside of these sessions. Like that's really important in progressing this stuff online. And like this right here is a very clear example of what like a great A++ client looks like, right? Give yourself a pat on the back, Daniel. Because the green on here is what you want to see. You want to see completed sessions. You don't want to see red, right? You don't want to see missed sessions. You don't want to see missed movements. And I think one of the other things that I'm impressed with and like proud of is, unless you didn't tell me, Daniel, I don't think there was any failed reps. Were there?
No.
Yes, there wasn't a single failed rep in 4 months of training for the deadlift. Doesn't mean that, because some people might look at that as like, oh, you didn't push it enough. But to me, that's consistent momentum, consistent building, consistently putting you in a position where you're finding success each and every week and right where you need to be at, right? To me, that's like accuracy as opposed to like pushing it. On the last session, which we'll get to, we went for it, and that's what you got to, right? And I think it's really smart to not go past that. Every once in a while, if you're feeling it, you can go past it. But I think more often than not, staying in that zone of like, hey, cool, I got some room in the tank, I don't think I need to push it today, is like such a smart thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and also like looking at when you look at a training program and it's not as much as you would expect, for me, this is a sign of coaching competence in the sense that it's a sign of coaching competence as well as the power of individual design, because it's with when you can make this like
Oh, did we lose Daniel?
that
Okay.
my
He's here.
coach is precise in the prescription. So it's
You did. I don't know if everybody cut out. You cut out a little bit there for a second.
okay,
You're going
sorry.
in and out.
So for me, like this amount of training volume says it's, by the looks of it, it can seem like it's not a lot of training, but that's also a sign that it's in design, it's quite precise in what we need to do. So if I throw a lot of volume on my client, and it might be that 50% sticks and 50% is just not for them, or it might be that it doesn't move the client towards the goal we set out to achieve. They still need to recover from that 50%.
Mhm.
So it's and that also, like, there's nothing wrong about like general programs and templates, but the weakness of it is that you need to write for everyone and no one, and then you'll have to hit a lot of stuff to make it inclusive and to make sure that everyone is progressing. Whereas with the individual design, you can really target what's actually going to move the needle for that specific client, and then probably the volume is going to go down, because I have clients sometimes where when you or if I'm on a discovery call and they ask like, how many sessions am I going to get, like it's like, if you get 5 sessions it would be worth more than 2.
Mhm.
But to me, that says something of you misunderstood the point here. I'm here to coach you and get you to the goal, and we need to figure out what's the best way to get there. It's not about you buying training program in volume or in amount of sessions, because that's not what you do, and that's what I do. It's more of like coaching the individual and making sure that we make the decisions we need to do to get to or achieve what we set out to do. And this will be like an example on how to be precise in program design. It's not a lot, but the stuff that's in there is actually like piece by piece moving me closer to the goal.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I do think a lot of clients misunderstand that about the online space. I do think a lot of marketing is done for like general online programming where they're like, it's like $1.50 a workout or something like that. And that's what kind of gets that mindset going. But I think in this setting, you have to step in. And as a coach, you have to explain too. It's like, listen, I'm designing for you, right? And I think a lot of times too, what I think you need is going to be in the program, right? I'm not just filling days for you just because, you know, it's going to make you feel better. Like if I think you need the 3 lifting days, which we've talked about, and I want to dive into a couple other things after this, but then as a coach, you have to communicate that to the client, let them know, and build that trust with them so they know, right? And I
Yeah.
think Daniel and I sat down early on, and I told him, I was like, I think this is what this is what I've seen works best in this setting. This is what I think is gonna help you the most, and also like allow you to get these other things done. And to me, it's worked out beautifully. And obviously with Daniel, he's seeing the results that he wants. So, but yeah, so breaking this down, obviously we started with just to kind of go into the deadlift specifically. We were progressing this from a very higher rep range here in the beginning. Where were we? We're about three to like like 3 reps, 4 reps, 5 reps, somewhere around there. And then we kind of started to progress this down into January and February. So we started to bump this percentage up. So we went from 5 sets of 2 from 83 to 85%. We did this again with like a slight increase the week after. As you can see these as I pull these up, right?
Yeah.
Cool. A slight increase the week after. Then we had where are we at? We had a little bit of a pullback week getting into February. And one of the things I like to do on pullback weeks is introduce the new movements. So there's no real stress about learning movements and having to like load them really heavy. So this is another like little tool you can use as a coach instead of just introducing new movements on like a new week and just having it be like, cool, go build to a heavy set of something that, there's a couple of things me and Daniel actually ran into some like, I guess, logistical issues with, one of them being the reverse hyper. It was just something that Daniel had to figure out like how to set up in his gym, and it didn't like feel great the first week. So allowing him to have that on like a pullback week where the idea is to recover anyways instead of like load something up very heavy, that allows him to kind of take a step back and be like, cool, there's not really a pressure on me to like load this up as heavy as I can. It's just to kind of figure out the movement. And like I said, then you can actually take all the stuff that kind of goes into teaching a new movement online and give them a little bit of leeway to make a mistake on the first week and not like lose a week of training because of it. So that's another little tool I like to use. But we had this little deload week, and I started to introduce some sandbag training because I do think sandbag training is so good in so many ways. And I don't know how many people in here have ever played around with like strongman training, but strongman training, I mean, obviously for a deadlift is probably one of the better things you could do, but it's just so beneficial for grip. It's so beneficial for, overall strength. You have to use your body in a way that's not normal. Like you're literally just picking up things at like weird things, odd objects, and it's so beneficial overall for fitness. Then we got really started to push this thing. So this is when we started to go into the 85 to 88% range, and we started to work a little bit, lower in the rep range of 2, working our way into like singles. Started to build from here. Daniel hit 200 kilos, and this was a mistake, I believe, right? I think the mistake here was you miscalculated. What was that on this one? Where was it?
Yeah, I had one week where I did a big jump where I miscalculated.
Yeah, it was this one. It must have been this one. Because you started off with went with 200. So I'm assuming that was the mistake. But
Yeah.
that's a good thing. That's a good sign too, and that's something I want you guys to pay attention to as well. Sometimes the athlete may not follow it directly, but like good mistakes like that, where it's like, cool, I moved this weight well. Those are always little good signs as well to show progression and them feeling good. From this, we jumped to started to kind of partition these sets a little bit. So we were breaking them up into different load ranges. So we had 2 sets of 2 at 205 kilos, and then 3 sets of 1 at 210 to 212 to really start to kind of prime that heavy lift, get them used to the difference of a single and a double. And I think this is something that's really important as well. It's not when you're priming somebody or getting them ready to go for a heavy single, triples and doubles are a lot different, right? And I think Daniel, you might have talked about this last week, I think it was last week when you were diving into the athletes. It's like feeling a double and a triple is sometimes a lot easier to digest than a heavy single, especially for someone who's looking to compete, because you have that idea in your head like, oh, well, it wasn't a single. And when you're doing a triple or you're doing a double, it's like, I know I got some room, but you want to transition, because the feeling of going for a single is like, you're just going for one attempt. So like you have to be ready. You have to, like, soon as you start and you touch that bar, it's go time. And I think you have to kind of get into the mindset. You have to get into the bracing set of like just understanding how to prime your body to move heavy load for 1 rep. So you want to start to kind of ease your way into that and introduce multiple sets of 1 after working at like a 3 to 4 rep range for a little bit. So then the week after that, we hit 2 sets of 1, 1 set of 1, and then another set at a little bit of a heavier load from here. And this was just building heavier than the week before. As you can see in the note section, we worked at 212 for the 2 sets of 1. Then we had 1 set at 217 to 220. And then basically whatever weight Daniel worked up to there, I wanted him to build a little bit heavier for 1 more set of 1. We ended up working at 212, 215, and 220. And was easier to load. I'm assuming that was a note, obviously, about the progressing the weight. And then from here, we just built. And then basically from here was the prep week before. So one of the things that I've learned as well inside of the deadlift is giving yourself a little bit of time before you actually go into it. It is really beneficial. Still hitting a heavier load, not because you're backing off completely, but sometimes the test weeks, and you'll oftentimes see this in like different weight, depending on the program, you'll see just kind of like quick jumps into the testing week. And one of the things I've always done is this sort of idea here, where instead of going right from this, heavier load that we just hit into test week, is just giving ourselves a little bit of a step back at just like a slight percentage back, and almost like a back off week, but it's not really a back off week because you're still hitting a pretty high percentage on the deadlift. And then we go for it. And this is where we got to 240. So basically I laid out a couple jumps for him. We had 1 rep at 205, 1 rep at 220, 1 rep at 220 to 230 plus. And that was where we were just kind of building and seeing where we were at for the day. And that's where Daniel hit 240. So that was the deadlift progression, like specifically that we went through. Any feedback on that or thoughts on that progression that you went through?
I think it's going back to the week before. That's a crucial piece in the progression, how you play that.
That was right here. Yes, this one.
Yeah. So for me, it worked really well with the 3 sets, 1 rep at 214. What I usually do, like the week before, or if it's like, I sometimes design it like they have options, so they build up to between 70 and 80%. If they feel strong fast and that this is the day, I have them do, and this is more for experienced clients that can evaluate kind of the feeling they have during the day or during the session, that they have the option to go like, if this is the day, go for it. If not, I want you to stay around maybe 80% and just give me 3 singles. We'll hit it next week. So I think it's like the week before is quite crucial in terms of how you play it, and also like we talked a lot of times about like confidence. How do you build confidence? And for me, this was the perfect setup to hit those 3 singles at 214. Felt great, and then and I'd say this too with the 240. I've in the past, I think the best thing I've done is a triple at 220. So it was it was a bit special going into the heavy single, since I feel like, let's say 240 is not that, it's not that I jumped 220 to 240, because I've pulled
Yeah.
230 in the past. I pulled a triple at 220. Still, I had only trained at, like, the heaviest single I did was 220. So it's the last session with the heavy single was quite special, because I had hit 220 and then I hit 230 the next lift, which was the first one I hit 230 in a long time. And then I did hit 240, and then I felt like, okay, this is it, because it was a bit, I really had to fight for it. Not that it was like bad lifting in a way, but I didn't have to fight for it, as well as not used to pulling like 220, 230, 240. It's a bit different, since I haven't touched the weight over 220 until that session. So I think it was like the perfect setup for me with the singles at 214, and then going for it at the next week.
Yeah, and I think this is a concept I'll say I learned from training fighters, because a lot of times, obviously with fight week, right? Like, I mean, we'll call that fight week. This entire week you're looking at right here, which was prior to the testing day, or fight night, right? So that week before, you want to give them touches of intensity, right? So one of the things you want to do in this setting, and why I do this, is you touch on that intensity, right? You're touching 85%, and you're in that zone, and you don't really need a lot of it to keep yourself getting that adaptation. And like, one of the things, for example, when I work with a lot of guys before the fights, that whole week before the fight, like, our sessions are a lot different. Basically, what I do in that session is I take them through the warm up that I normally do, and then that's it. There's no like lifting after that. There's no any sort of like big neurological, I guess, exhaustion. It's more of like priming, get them out of there. And I think with this sort of deadlift, the idea that I usually take into this sort of thing is just get you as close as we can without really fatiguing you or causing any extra damage or taking away from what's going to be the fight week, because you're still getting that stimulus of the deadlift. You're at that 85%. You're, basically, as you're at that number where you're still going to get a nice adaptation, and it's not going to be like you haven't deadlifted in 2 weeks. And that's a really important thing to kind of take into programming, is understanding how you can actually still get a stimulus without touching that number, right? And sometimes you don't need to get close to it. You just need to kind of introduce them, show them the movement, let them touch that high peak of intensity, and in the most efficient way possible, and then get out of there. And that's what my plan was here, and that's what we did. So it was a great progression. Even the some of the things that we adjusted throughout that I can talk about are some of the accessory work pieces. We had a couple things here that we talked about that Daniel and I, and this is one thing I'm going to dive into before the end as well. Daniel and I have been very good with communicating, like, the things that work best for him, the things he likes, and then fitting it into, what I think he needs or how I think he needs it. And that was very, apparent here in the sessions. We had some step ups that we worked with, but then as we started to introduce the sandbag stuff, there was a little bit of, I think, a number here. Yeah. So it was like around this weight where we were picking up the weight back, the sandbag that he had at this rep. It was a little bit hard to pick up. It's a lot when you're doing that many reps over the course of time. So it's definitely good feedback to hear, because sometimes, like we've talked about in the past, when you're writing out program design, sometimes numbers don't seem that big, or they don't seem as apparent to you because you're not in there seeing that workout in real time. But it's really nice to have that feedback to say, this is a lot of reps over the course of, 3 rounds. can we bring this down? Because you don't want these pieces at the end to then take away from helping the deadlift. We want them to build at the intensity that's necessary. So taking that from 8 reps to the last couple of weeks where we went 3 and 5, I think it was, or just 3. No, yeah, sorry, 3. We adjusted this to 3, and that still gives him the intensity he needs while taking down the volume completely. So he's still getting that adaptation while not destroying his grip, destroying his upper back, for the rest of the week, and kind of overdoing it where you don't need to be doing it. So that's another thing with the accessory work that went really well. Then the reverse hyper, this was something that we had to play around with that felt good. And I think one of the cool things with that Daniel and I had a conversation about was normally, and correct me if I'm wrong, normally the reverse hyper would be something that didn't feel good. And Daniel had mentioned he would kind of just like not do, or he would just kind of like throw it out. And one of the things we talked about was how I kind of, nudged him a little bit to say, hey, can we, like, let's try to give it one more week and see if we can make it feel a little bit better. And he found something that kind of worked and allowed him to work through that movement and got a lot out of it. So I want to, if you can give some feedback on that as well.
Yeah, because I think it's really important to like give feedback and let you know what I like and what feels good, but with that also stay coachable, because it's if I there might be a movement that you really want to have in the program, and I can just like I need to make it work or get used to it, because it's sometimes new stuff is just doesn't feel as good in the beginning, and it's I think there's a fine line between having lots of opinions about like exercise selections and not being coachable. So I think it's you want to be in a place where you give feedback and letting your coach know your preferences and how everything feels and how it goes, but also stay coachable and open to try new things, because that's where the value is. And for me also, given that I work as a coach, getting some new perspective and getting to try new things is really valuable for me. So and I think that's a part of it that's been really good with us working together with having the conversation about how it feels, and for me to make sure to give feedback and like not just doing the program or get lazy in how I give feedback.
Yeah.
To have that conversation is super valuable, and that's why I also do believe like that. And we've said this before: a coach needs a coach for experience, like the client journey, and keep that relatable. Two, it's good to be coached and stay coachable and get some new perspectives. So it's definitely useful to be coached.
Yeah, and I think one of the things too as a coach, and something that kind of came to my mind as you were talking, and I think that you and I both have this quality, because everything you're saying there, like, it is so true as the client, right? Like and especially in your shoes as a coach, like you have knowledge, you have experience, and you're still able to be coached and coachable, right? But I think as the coach, it's what's really important. You're going to have pushback, right? You have to trust that your opinion or your thought on what's going on in this process of coaching, like, you're there for a reason, right? And normally, like, in the past, I'll personally say when I first started coaching, if Daniel and I were working together when I first started coaching and he had mentioned that, I probably would have been like, all right, we'll change it, like we'll figure something out. And like whether I believed in it or not, like whatever it was, if I felt like that was the thing, but you got to have a reason, right? That if you feel like you have a understanding of like this is going to help you for XYZ reason, here's why I want you to do this, right? But have the confidence to say, hey, listen, I understand what you're saying. Give it another week, right? Trust that I'm putting you in the right position. Trust that I'm not kind of leading you astray, and give me the benefit of the doubt here, and let's give it a shot, right? And I think sometimes with coaches, we almost get too uh what's the word I'm looking for? Like people pleasing. And when we start to get that feedback of like, oh my God, someone doesn't like this, like I got to make them like it. I got to make sure they like it, blah, 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 this and that. You know, again, you're the coach for a reason. They're coming to you for a reason, right? And they're there to trust your opinion. If they're not trusting your opinion, or they're not, if it's a constant thing where they're coming and saying like, you know, you're writing a program and like, I don't like this, and this. It's okay. Well, like, are you here to be coached, or are you here to, you know, what is your actual goal being here? Because one of the things with Daniel that's really easy for him to do is, oh, I'm a coach. You know, I would change this, and this. And it's like, well, yeah, of course we could have that conversation, but Daniel's been so good about like, hey, I'm here for a reason. I want to, you know, you're running the show, but like I'm giving you the pieces that I think are better for me. And one of the most recent conversations we had, which was a really good conversation, after our last deadlift, we had like our monthly check-in call, was basically having the conversation of like, hey, there's some pieces I just don't like in the training, right? And there's some pieces I really do enjoy in the training. And it's my job to say, cool, we can work with these things that you really enjoy, right? What is the reason that you enjoy them? What are the reasons you like them? And then I can fit that in. And that's a lot different than me coming and just saying, I don't like this, or him coming and saying, I don't like this. This isn't good, but you know, whatever it might be. But that gives me the confidence of the coach to say, cool, I can make sure he's enjoying the programming while then fitting this in the way that I see fit with some of these things that he likes. But there's also going to be those moments where we just had the conversation with like the reverse hyper. It's like, hey, listen, like, can you give me another couple weeks? Can you like try to adjust it? Can you see if this works? Can you play around with this, whatever it might be? Because sometimes you just need a little bit of a push, or a little bit of a more time on a movement to actually get what you need from it. And I think sometimes we're too quick to pull the plug on some of this stuff. And as clients, you have to give that patience. And as a coach, you have to stand your ground, essentially stand your ground and trust that what you're trying to do is putting them in the best position for success. And I think that's a really important tool to use as well.
Yeah, and as
yeah,
a
go ahead.
coach, you're not just there to entertain and validate. You're also there to defend your beliefs and the principles you build your practice on. So, and I found myself in that situation a lot of times over the years, where I just end up complying to like their opinions, or what they want to change, or if they want to add more pieces in, and I just end up feeling that I'm just writing this program for you, in the
Yeah.
sense that I don't recognize myself as a coach anymore in the design. And that's not a place where you want to be as a coach, because then if you lose your principles and lose your beliefs, it's just like the starting point of the end point, really. It's
Yeah.
and I've said this before, for coaching, when you seek out, there's lots of information. There's like the time we live in now, clients have access to a lot of information as well as coaches do. And if you're brave enough to seek out, or like test your belief, and prepare to falsify your principles and your beliefs, you'll come out on the other side of that as a way stronger coach than compared to if you just seek out validation. And it's the same as a client. If you just want a coach that cheer you on and validates you, my belief is that that's not the best case for you. You still want to be challenged. You still want to, like you did with a reverse hyper. If you would just took it out of the program because I didn't like it, I might have the program has been different, and it might be the case that I didn't have the chance to pull 240. So it's so useful to have people around you, coaches, colleagues, and like place yourself in a setting that, in a good way, in a constructive way, challenge you, and be open to falsify beliefs, principles, because you'll be over the years stronger, and you'll end up with way stronger principles if you have that approach.
Yeah. And I think also for us, and like, I know you can attest to this, if you start moving, right? And when I say moving, like metaphorically moving and not standing your ground, you end up getting clients that are like that. And I think we all understand, like, when you have clients that don't listen or don't give you feedback or don't uh comply, we'll just call it, right? With low compliance, they're not fun to deal with. And as coaches, we want athletes and clients that are fun to deal with. They're not always going to be fun. They're not always going to be, Daniel, in regards to like the ease of working and the compliance. But when you allow that to happen, or you don't, and again, this isn't like a dictatorship or whatever, but it's like when you allow to be pushed on your belief of like, hey, no, I truly believe that you need this, but like you're disagreeing, so I'm just gonna agree with you, then you end up getting that type of client, and you end up building a list of clients like that, and then you end up getting burnt out, and then you end up, done with coaching, right? And it's just those simple little things that add up over time, where it's as simple as like, hey, listen, like I really believe in this. I want you to try it. And then you collaboratively come to the agreement like, hey, cool, we tried this for a week or 3 weeks, or sorry, we tried this for a month, 3 weeks. It doesn't work. It's not logistical. Let's make the change. And that's where the conversation starts. That's where it goes. And that's how you can actually progress and have like a fulfilling coaching career, in my opinion. So
Yeah, it's the coach-client relationship it's a conversation, and take part of it and nurture it, because that's where the magic happens.
yeah, 100%. And then from there, so like kind of moving forward, and I know we've been kind of isolating the deadlift because I think that's the most important thing. Obviously, with the other movements, we're keeping these days the same, working on some like fundamental patterns, working on some fundamental movements, starting to, transition some of these things into this next phase. So after this, 240 kilo deadlift, the next couple weeks, my plan with Daniel, which we talked about, was to kind of work on some of the things that we saw, right? And I think actually, let's pull this up, because did you? Oh no, you put the video on Instagram. You didn't put the video on here. So with the deadlift, when we looked through the actual full deadlift movement, we saw some things throughout the weeks as he posted the videos to Instagram and Coach RX, and we saw some things we wanted to work on, right? The speed on some of these positions, the lockout, the speed of the lockout, and whatnot. So my plan over the next couple of weeks is to kind of step back from the deadlift, take a little bit of a, chill pill on that, take them away from that movement, and just start still working on these muscles, the erectors, the glutes, the hamstrings, these posterior chain big driving muscles. They're going to finish that movement while still getting a lot of volume here, right? So introducing a lot of volume, introducing some different movement patterns, and trying to work through that range of motion as best as possible. So for the next couple weeks, the goal was to introduce some new explosive movements at the top here, work on something like a Zercher good morning. We swapped this out for the sandbag, just because the Zercher bars can be a pain if you're not used to it in the elbow. But working on that hinging pattern. Then we had some barbell hip thrusts, and then we worked on the RDL, as well as kind of working on some adductor and abductors for the accessory work here. So my goal with this over the next, say, 2 to 3 weeks, really probably this week, obviously, like starting yesterday, and then next week, is just to kind of work through these movement patterns, work through some different ranges of motion, still get that stimulus in a different way through these patterns, and then come back to the deadlift and start to rebuild from that phase. And one of the things we talked about, Daniel and I, is because I think another thing that gets really confusing as a coach is like, okay, well, do I just come back and retest the deadlift? And it's like, well, no. So we got that new number. We got this new 240 kilo number that we're hitting. And the goal now is to kind of rebuild with that phase. And a lot of the numbers we were using beforehand were around that, 220, 230, that sort of range of the number. So now we can actually go back and really work through these numbers at a new figure that's set, that we know Daniel lifted 240 kilos. So now we can kind of go back through this process, start from building from phase 1 into phase 2, and then getting that, because that gap that we're trying to fill now is very specific, right? We're essentially looking to fill a 10 kilo gap here. So that's going to be over the course of, 2-3 months, whatever that might be, figuring that same process out and kind of looking through and going back through the months of program. And this is one of the main reasons I've always loved having these sorts of things like Coach RX and being able to kind of write the program in this way, is I can simply go back and scroll up and say, cool, like what worked in these first couple weeks that makes a lot of sense or that Daniel really enjoyed. And I can repeat that process, right? It doesn't mean you're repeating the same movements, but you're still taking that concept of like, cool, this movement looked really well. This volume set looked really well. This weight jump worked really well. So now let's plug that into this next phase and improve it and the things that we need to improve, whether it's the movements that Daniel really enjoys, the things that I think he really needs, swapping some of the things that we worked on last time into this next phase. And really actually, then this is again, as you have more data, as you have more room to program, you learn, you're able to kind of take that in, reaccount for what's next, and then actually build an individualized program that like takes the client where they want to be. So like I said, with these next couple weeks, it's kind of taken a little bit of a step back here, starting to work through a real run progression. Because the other thing that Daniel and I talked about was having a little optional run, because he does like to have those longer runs as well. So I started on Tuesday, Thursday, building in a little progression that's going to start to kind of progress in opposite directions a little bit. And then we're going to have that optional run on Sunday to work on as well, while still having that upper body focus day and then a bodybuilding day. And we're just going to get back into it. So thoughts on that?
If you refresh now, it should be the video should be on the 240. Should be in the Coach RX.
Cool. Let's check.
Let's see if it's there. No.
No. Let me see. Let me click off and then go back. I wonder if it's not.
Oh wait. Hold on. Oh no, it's if try now if you refresh. Should be in there.
There we go.
There you go.
Let's see this thing. Look at that. So this right here, that little finish towards the end is what we kind of saw from here, where we were like, because that was a good pull off the ground, and moving 240 off the ground at that speed is good. It was right about here where we start to see that little lockout. And that's what again, those are little pieces and things. And that's why these videos are so important, is so you can see, okay, what does that actually look like at the top, right? So where is the sticking points? And as we start to see, literally the last quarter of that movement was like a sticking point for Daniel. But Daniel and I spoke about that, and he was pretty adamant, and you were pretty adamant that basically once you get it past the knee, you got the deadlift. And I think that's a really important thing to realize as well, is like, this might just been the movement. It could have been whatever, but we're going to focus on this for the next couple of weeks, because that little piece right there, to me, like, I feel like even seeing that deadlift, you got room off the ground, right? And then that last half of that movement was where I was like, okay, is that where the 250 is going to struggle? Is that where we're going to stop it, or it's going to stop? So that's what we want to take into this next phase, is literally looking at this video, checking that part right there, saying, cool, how do we work on that little piece right there? Glutes, erectors, really working on movement at the hips, working on structure at the hips, that sort of thing. And that's where we kind of want to take this. And that's where really the accessory work is going to come into what we're talking about, right? So maybe that main movement's still going to stay the deadlift after this next couple of weeks, but those pieces that are going to improve that movement, right, accessory to the main movement, which are going to support that and build it, are what's going to allow us to kind of work on this in a little bit more in-depth detail and specifically target this thing. And that's where, again, individualization comes right from this sort of thing, where it's like, obviously, if you're working on a deadlift, there's a lot of things that could help support the deadlift. But when we look at this deadlift specifically, we'll watch it again because it's sick. As we start to get through this range of motion, that right there, this part right here is individualization. This is where we sit down and we say, cool, Daniel needs this. So now let's take these accessory pieces. What are the reps and sets we might need? What's the progressions, the tempos? And that's where we actually start to build a program that truly gets, someone where they want to be.
Yeah, because it's I was quite surprised. I've as I said to you when we spoke, if I get it past the knees, I'm pretty sure I will lock it out. But this one, I could really feel like when I got past the knees, like, this is heavy. I'm gonna have some troubles locking this out, and just also when it gets heavier, like lifting 60% or 70% for reps, you might have a given weak link, but then when we get to heavier weights and your max effort, that weak link might change.
100%.
And also, like, just looking at going forward, looking at that video, our best guess is getting stronger in the glutes and the lockout. So why not get after it? So it's I think it's also that sometimes coaches get caught up in want absolute certainty to have it as a bias in the program. But if you just trust yourself and look at it and, okay, it looks like we need to improve that lockout. If anything, I'm not going to be weaker in the deadlift if I get a stronger lockout.
Mhm.
So it just like we fix that and see if it gets us to 250. If not, let's get on to the next thing. Let's just get like stronger, and you can't go wrong with strong, right?
Exactly. To a certain point, I think. I don't know if you can go wrong with strong. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's it. I think I'm glad with the progress we've made. I'm glad with, where we're at, and I'm excited where we're going, because I do think the next couple months, I think, like I said, that phase of getting to 250 is a lot tight. Like, it's a lot more specific to get to, because we were just kind of like, cool, I think this is where we're at. Now let's see. And now we're like, here's the number. Here's where we're going to. So
There's a quote, I think it's Mark Bell who says this, but strength is never a weakness. You guys made me think about that.
I'll tell you what's a weakness. 90% of water bottles. Why is it so hard to find a good water bottle?
I
I
know.
want a nice water bottle. I can't find
What's
a good
wrong
one.
with that one?
No, this one's nice. I like this one.
Oh, okay.
It's just been so hard to find a good water bottle.
I hear you. I went with a glass
Okay,
with straw.
maybe that's the move.
Awesome. That was so cool. Daniel, that's congratulations. That was, awesome progress and such a huge pull.
Thank you. It was really nice. It's deadlift's always been special to me, and I think it's special to a lot of people. But for me, it's always been that like pure expression of strength, because it's not. You can have a discussion about lockout and stuff, but if we go with squats, it's going to be depth and like. But with the deadlift, it's like, can you pick it up? Can you pick it up? Or same with like any pulling movement. And I see a lot of clients having the goal, especially female clients actually, that comes to me like, I want to pull this amount of weight in the deadlift, and I want to be able to do a pull up. And there's something special about those movements, I think.
100%.
Do you guys have I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you are amazing coaches. What are your favorite cues when it comes to deadlift for people to express it fully?
I don't know.
Like, I always hear people say, like, think about pushing the floor away versus pulling.
I usually go with think about it as you're sitting in a leg press in the beginning, if you have that reference. So pushing the floor away, and as soon as you get past the knees, I wanted to squeeze the hip. So sometimes when I build it up, I build it with hip thrusts as a reference, so I can play on that when they go for the deadlift.
That's really smart.
So I want that exact same feeling as, because a hip thrust is essentially just you doing bend or hinge laying down. So if I build that reference, I can play on that when they go to pull the deadlift. So that's usually how I think about it. And it's probably a consequence of me being remote coach. I sometimes pick it apart and build it in that way, so I can play on those references then when they were going to pull deadlift. And I do that with different movements. So think about the elements. How can I train it by myself? And also, how can I build in reference points for me as a coach to play on when they go to do the full movement?
I love that. Okay, last deadlift question, and it's probably the most important. Sumo or conventional?
Come on, end the show. End the show. Sumo's not real.
I hear you. And then I just have to give a shout out to Daniel's shirt. You have to show that off because he is wearing some of the new Coach RX swag available in the OPEX shop. If you head to our link in bio on the OPEX channel or in the footer of the OPEX site, you can find the shop. And there are some really cool designs for both OPEX and Coach RX swag. So I'll give that a shout out. All right, you guys rock.
What do you think Ronnie Coleman would say about sumo deadlifting? Come on.
Ain't nobody got time for that, he'd say.
Yeah. That's my cue.
Um,
That's my cue for deadlifting. Just the what do you call it? The meta glasses or the thing, the Apple
mhm.
glasses. Just put a Ronnie Coleman video, put it on their head, tell them to deadlift. All they see is that.
Yeah, buddy. Okay, cool. You guys are the best. Appreciate you as always. Thanks for hanging a few minutes over, and we'll catch you back next week. Again, drop comments below. We will be prepared to answer. And of course, both coaches' Instagram bios are linked in this description. So DM them if you have any questions. They do not bite.
Definitely don't.
See you later.
Peace out.
See you.